Tonight, hope from the deep. Signs of life detected near the Titanic in the search for a missing sub. Fresh claims of a police cover-up over the taser death of dementia patient Claire Nowland. The controversial plan to put metal detectors on our streets to fight knife crime. Sydney shivers through the coldest June morning in more than a decade. Getting square, the Blues promise to be brutal in Origin 2 tonight. And how Pat Cummins' late mum helped inspire one of the greatest Ashes victories of all time.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Mark Ferguson.
Good evening. There are possible signs of life tonight 4 kilometres below the surface of the Atlantic Ocean, where a mini submarine has vanished on a dangerous voyage to see the wreck of the Titanic. In the past few hours, searchers have detected a banging noise every half hour, possibly from the 5 people on board. It has raised hopes and anxiety. David Woywood reports tonight from Newfoundland on Canada's remote east coast.
It seemed impossible, but just a few hours ago, signs of life from a sonar, which acts like a bionic ear underwater.
Crews searching for the sub reportedly heard today banging sounds at 30-minute intervals.
Followed by another unidentified noise close to the Titanic wreck and confirmed by the US Coast Guard.
Immediately, the first thing is it gets your hopes go skyrocketing up, but also it makes you think that, wow, time is really now against us.
And that's the bad news. Even if the mini sub is found and everyone on board is alive, how do they get them back to the surface?
This is a very complex search, and the unified team is working around the clock to bring all available assets and expertise to bear as quickly as possible.
But time may have already beaten them. The sub has as little as 24 hours of oxygen left, and to sail salvage equipment to the site will take 2 days.
I would assume they're stuck on the bottom in the mud or somehow entangled in Titanic.
Incredibly, at almost 4 kilometres under the surface, it's too deep for even a US Navy submarine to mount a rescue mission. They never venture that far down, and with good reason.
Submersibles implode. They crush down on themselves like a toothpaste tube.
Which has many asking how these homemade mini subs are allowed to go so deep, especially when they're not certified in America or anywhere else and are steered by a cheap video game controller.
Perhaps there was a breach and water came in. I'm not very optimistic for their return.
Excitement or panic among those on board could also kill them. It's cramped and uncomfortable, and fear and adrenaline will only quicken their breathing. British billionaire Hamish Harding is a veteran adventurer with a cool head. So too Stockton Rush, the chief executive of OceanGate that owns the sub. The most experienced is former Navy officer Paul Henry Nagelay. And the only 2 rookies on board are father and son, Shahzada and Suleiman Dawood.
As it stands right now, it would be a miracle if they are recovered alive.
This photo of Harding was taken just before the sub entered the water on Sunday, staring at the ocean that now surrounds him.
The last thing I said to him was Godspeed, and I wished him luck with his dive.
In what's turned out to be a terrifying premonition before he actually left this dock here in Canada on Friday, Hamish Harding told a podcast that he knew that this mission wasn't without risk.
So what I worry about most are things that will stop me from being able to get to the surface.
Right now, underwater drones are trying to confirm the source of that banging and to hopefully spot the missing sub. Until then, every breath is precious and every minute that ticks by is the enemy. Just a few days ago, the mood here in this Canadian port city of St John's was one of complete shock, but this news today has really lifted this entire community. It has given many hope where there previously was none. A look pouring into the city tonight, yet more Naval and Coast Guard recruits. They are desperate to join that frantic search out there in the North Atlantic Ocean, and they are well drilled. They know they have to move fast or risk, again, sinking this city with grief.
David Woywood in Canada, thank you. Police are now being accused of a cover-up over the taser death of a 95-year-old great-grandmother at a Cooma nursing home. It has been revealed officers withheld crucial information about Claire Nowland's death for 2 days. There are calls tonight for the police minister to be sacked.
A week after her funeral, new questions about Claire Nowland's death.
It's come to light that there has been a cover-up.
A May 17, 71-word police press release revealed little about her interaction with police, stating the dementia sufferer was being monitored in hospital. No further details are available at this time. But secret documents show there were 100 words were culled from a much longer draft, including vital details that police found the 95-year-old still armed with a knife in a small room, and that when she moved towards officers, a taser was deployed by a constable. This full account wasn't released until 2 days later.
Everybody knew that those circumstances were not included in the immediate media release.
The police minister didn't.
It was the first I'd heard of an earlier, more detailed draft.
Yasmin Catley embarrassed in Parliament as she rushed to get details from the police she's in charge of.
I have been provided with a statement and I want to read that. Our priority was to ensure family members learned details of the incident directly from police.
Well, I think the Premier needs to give consideration to removing the police minister. She's clearly not up to the job.
Despite the increasing pressure, the Premier backed in his police minister this afternoon, denying she's not across her brief.
I reject the assumption or presumption that she should be removed from her portfolio, no.
And state political reporter Amelia Brace joins me now. Amelia, there's long-awaited news on the ICAC investigation into Gladys Berejiklian.
Yes, there is, Mark. We've learned this afternoon that that report will finally be released on Thursday next week, more than 600 days after Operation Keppel was launched and almost 2 years after it forced the former Premier to resign. Of interest will be whether Gladys Berejiklian breached public trust and the ministerial code of conduct by not disclosing her close personal relationship with disgraced former MP Daryl Maguire. She has, of course, always denied any wrongdoing. Her former colleagues here and her opponents will be watching with interest next week. Mark.
Amelia Brace, State Parliament, thank you. Tonight we can reveal that New South Wales Police might follow Queensland's lead in the fight against knife crime. Officers there can now randomly stop and search people with portable metal detectors. But some here claim those police powers would infringe on civil rights.
For Queensland Police.
What's in your pocket there?
This is a magic wand.
So both of you have been selected for random knife wanding.
Blitzers of popular nighttime precincts uncovered a machete, box cutters, knives and replica pistols that without new search powers would not have been found. 200 weapons seized, 500 charges.
It sends a message to those people who carry these weapons that if you do, you may be stopped anywhere, anytime in these areas.
Jack Beasley was stabbed to death at Surfers Paradise in 2019. His parents campaigned for these knife detection wands, and 7 News confirms they have been in talks with our police commissioner to roll them out here.
It's a law that we've seen introduced in Queensland, and we've seen that it has been effective in taking knives off the streets there, so it's time for New South Wales to step up.
Although the proposal for knife detection wands is gathering momentum here in New South Wales, there is opposition to it, with the suggestion it will deprive people of their civil liberties.
Queensland Police are allowed to search people at will, no need for reasonable suspicion.
Arbitrary intervention on civil liberties by police is bad policing.
Legislation introduced to State Parliament yesterday will double maximum jail time for knife possession, but even police concede knife crime is steadily declining.
And Robert Ovadia joins me now. Rob, have New South Wales Police made any comment on this today?
Hi Mark, not a word at all today, but the fact that Commissioner Karen Webb is holding talks about it does show that there is interest there. We've heard nothing though from the government either. We had requested Police Minister Yasmin Catley to talk about it. She didn't, however, once the story broke about the police response to the tasering of Claire Nowland. It's not a day she would want to be on camera, given the fact there are calls for her sacking, but to be fair, she does have a lot of fires right now to put out, Mark.
OK, Robert, thank you. There are fears Sydney's bloody underworld war could erupt once again following the release of a killer gangster from jail. But police say the world has changed since Mohammed Hamzi last tasted freedom, with many key crime figures now dead or on the run overseas.
Mohammed Hamzi rose to infamy with little regard for the law. His relatives have been gunned down.
Yeah, a bit of fireworks went off. Someone got hit with the fireworks.
Known as Little Crazy, he survived being stabbed behind bars, jailed for shooting 2 men. Now he's been released, sparking fears old feuds could reignite. The job of making sure that doesn't happen belongs to Andrew Katsoufis.
This is just business as usual for us. This is what we do.
Strikeforce Raptor has been preparing for Hamzi's release for months.
He's a convicted, serious, violent criminal with confirmed links to organised criminal networks.
Mohammed Hamzi was a senior member of the defunct Brothers for Life gang founded by Bassem Hamzi. His cousin Mahmoud Hamzi was shot dead in 2013 in an attempt on Mohammed's life, and during his time in jail, several other relatives have also been gunned down.
The landscape has changed a hell of a lot since way back then. A Raptor squad's been highly effective with what we do.
Hamzi is facing 17 strict parole conditions, banned from contacting bikies. With so many restrictions placed on him, sources say Hamzi will need to be on his best behaviour, and it's unlikely anyone who wants to harm him could do so undetected.
He'll have an ankle bracelet on. He'll be monitored everywhere he goes.
Andrew Denny, 7 News.
More than 1,000 New South Wales nursing jobs could be axed if the money to fund them is not found. Labor claims the previous government never came up with the cash, as Tom Saker explains.
Mark, the government is scrambling to find the money for more than 1,100 nurses. The previous government made those jobs temporary. Almost half those nurses work in metro health districts. A huge chunk in Sydney's southwest are in the firing line, where there's already a massive nursing shortage. 120 nurses could lose their jobs there. In Western Sydney, it's 109. In the southeast, 104, 99 in Sydney and 82 in North Sydney. Here's the Health Minister this morning.
Staffing's a nightmare. All because that lot wanted to get through an election.
It's now up to the Treasurer to find the money. Those nurses facing a nervous wait to see if they'll have a job after the budget is delivered in September. Mark?
Tom, thank you. A $250,000 reward is being offered to help solve a cold case. Police suspect Nia May was murdered 21 years ago in the state's south. The 18-year-old disappeared while travelling to her sister's home in Sydney. Niam would have been 40 today.
Unfortunately, she's not here with her family and friends to celebrate. To us, she'll be forever young.
Anonymous calls can be made to Crime Stoppers. Heated debate has gripped federal parliament about whether The Voice could be used to change the date of Australia Day, after claiming yesterday the advisory body won't give advice on the national holiday. The Minister for Indigenous Australians has now backtracked.
A national day of celebration.
Happy Australia Day!
The opposition claims could be threatened by The Voice.
Would The Voice have the power to advise the government to abolish Australia Day?
It is not the policy of this government to change the date of Australia Day.
But having told Parliament yesterday
it won't be giving advice on changing Australia Day.
Today, Linda Burney conceding it can, but the government won't listen.
The Voice may give advice, but the Parliament retains its primacy.
The opposition changing tack, suggesting The Voice's ability to advise the government would be unlimited.
Can the Minister name an issue that affects non-Indigenous Australians that does not affect Indigenous Australians?
Leaving the Minister exasperated.
I am not interested in culture wars. I am interested in closing the gap.
Anthony Albanese had had enough, organising a question to himself to launch a counterattack against Peter Dutton.
Australians have the sense to look past the fear-mongering of some.
Accusing Mr Dutton of employing the same tactics he used in boycotting the apology to the stolen generations.
It was nonsense then and it's nonsense now.
Abandoning his own wish for a civil debate. Mark Riley, 7 News.
Senator Jackie Lambie has met with Defence Minister Richard Marles after she referred the military's top brass to the International Criminal Court. She's claiming senior commanders have not been properly investigated for alleged war crimes in Afghanistan that took place on their watch. Senator Lambie is now remaining unusually quiet on how the meeting went. With Sydney suburban mayors rebelling against high-rise development to solve the housing crisis, today there was a new idea. A key business leader wants more high-rise in the city, claiming it's where many people want to live and it's where they're needed.
Sydney's skyline from the CBD to Parramatta and the high-rise evidence of a population heading skyward. But today a call for even more right in the centre of the CBD.
We need the teachers, we need the cleaners, we need the hospital workers, all in the city.
Business Sydney boss Paul Nicolau is a YIMBY, not a NIMBY. Yes, in my backyard.
And if we're serious about increasing the economic engine of Sydney, we've got to get more people into the city.
Nicolau says the CBD's population has flatlined, over 5 years growing by only 525 people, while Melbourne's jumped more than 5,000. He's calling for tax breaks, rezoning.
We've got to incentivise developers.
The push comes as the federal government's $10 billion plan for more affordable homes sits blocked by the Greens.
They want people to stay in poverty so they can have a rally against it.
The Greens are demanding a rental freeze first, but today the Premier said that won't happen here.
It will do more harm than good and ultimately affect supply and cost.
The state government also backs high-rise solutions. Some aren't convinced.
But we're going to be like termites, like living like battery hens in great big high-rise.
Population campaigner Dick Smith supports old immigration numbers, 70,000 a year, not the current trend, 300,000, warning high-rise density could explode.
More and more rent stress and higher prices. It's an absolute disaster.
Chris Reason, 7 News.
A toll ambulance helicopter, which normally rescues patients, has needed rescuing itself after becoming bogged on an oval in North Richmond. It sank into the muddy grass late on Monday, taking off deemed too dangerous. Today, the chopper was safely manoeuvred onto stands and checked over ahead of its return to base. Prime Minister Albanese has hailed Pat Cummins a legend for leading Australia to victory over England in one of the greatest Ashes tests ever played. Cummins and Nathan Lyon held on in a heart-stopping run chase, a win deeply emotional for the Aussie captain.
5 thrilling days from ball one to end, 146 years of battling the old enemy with the sweetest finish of all.
And Australia are home. Ice in his veins, Pat Cummins.
Is it number one?
Number one, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
With the lucky ones who can always say with honesty they were at Edgbaston that day, Peter Cummins on his first trip away since losing his wife and Pat's mum Maria.
Really special. Yeah, Dad's been here all week, so I just feel really lucky to have him here. It's been a tough few months.
Chasing 281, 72 still needed when Usman Khawaja went, 8 down, 55 to go after losing Alex Carey. What might have been had Ben Stokes held on to Nathan Lyon.
There's a man out there! Oh!
Yeah, God, it's amazing, like.
Cummins, epitome of cool calm.
You feel, oh, well, it's mine to win or lose, you know, it doesn't really matter.
Don't listen to Lyon when he says he can't bat.
I don't know what happened. I think I had my eyes closed when that happened.
Lyon 16, Cummins 44, the narrowest margin of victory by wickets over England in more than a century. From Prime Minister to captain.
He is a legend and a great Australian on and off the field.
It couldn't have happened without these brash new English Bazballers. They have 4 tests yet to top this one.
Australia do Australia and we do we. That makes sense. They probably said that a bit better, but...
Cummins went to Bruce Springsteen with his dad after day 1 of the test. Glory days indeed.
Great week.
Matt Carmichael, 7 News.
And we'll have more wonderful highlights in sport. Time for the weather details now. Amber, it was the city's coldest morning in more than a decade.
Good evening, Mark. Yes, it was an icy morning right across Sydney. In fact, across much of the state today as minimums plummeted below zero. This is Oberon earlier. As you can see, plenty of frost there. And also closer to Sydney, these shots from Richmond this morning. While it was perfect conditions on the slopes today, this is at Perisher. Perisher Valley recorded minus 10.1 degrees early this morning. That is Australia's lowest June temperature since 2019. Elsewhere across New South Wales, though, 4.3 degrees at Newcastle was that city's coldest morning in 23 years. It was also the coldest morning in 5 years at Mudgee, Orange and at Bathurst. Our run of sunshine is going to briefly come to an end, though, with showers on the way. We'll have all of the details in your full forecast. That's coming up soon, Mark.
OK, Amber, thank you. The masterminds of a multi-million-dollar childcare fraud face court. Ahead, they were facing decades in prison, so how did they walk free? A major development for a tennis superstar in her cancer scare. The battle begins for tickets to see Taylor Swift, what they'll cost. Later, the little things you can do now to maximise your tax refund. And a massive fire has destroyed an apartment block, how no one was hurt. Welcome back. A young family has escaped from their home in Sydney South after a fire broke out in their garage. A vehicle was parked inside the Kingsgrove property, but it did not spark the blaze.
We believe that the fire started elsewhere in the garage and just involved the car. We're looking for we know the point where the fire started. We're looking for what ignition sources may have been in that area to cause the fire.
The family was checked over by paramedics, but not harmed. A husband and wife who pulled the strings of an elaborate plot to defraud money from a childcare subsidy scheme have escaped jail time. The couple ripped off tens of thousands of dollars from Australian taxpayers before police swooped.
Husband and wife, partners in crime, Ali Farman and Lubna Hashimi, ringleaders of a dodgy daycare syndicate more disciplined than an outlaw bikie gang.
Was it worth it?
Overseen a fraud scheme under the identity of Red Rose Family Daycare, where their own children were used to claim Commonwealth subsidies for supervision that never happened.
If you try to steal money off the taxpayer for a service that you never provide, then we'll prosecute you and we'll catch you.
And they did. The pyramid scheme came crashing down in 2019.
Police search warrant!
More than 40 people arrested, coordinators, educators and parents. Police put the fraud at $4 million, but could only track back $90,000.
This is a big amount of taxpayers' money. It's meant to educate our kids and help parents go back to work. It's not meant to make crooks rich.
The court heard Mr. Farman blamed his co-offenders for his own crimes, while Ms. Hashimi blamed herself, claiming human error and pressure from others led her to making unlawful mistakes. The Georges Hall couple sentenced to 3 years served under supervision in the community. Freedom at the cost of $20,000, far less than the amount stolen from taxpayers. Bill Hogan, 7 News.
A massive fire has ripped through an apartment building in Las Vegas. Thick black smoke covered the southwest of the city as dozens of firefighters battled to bring the blaze under control. The units were under construction, so no one was hurt, but owners will have to start all over again with the entire building destroyed. French police have raided the organising committee for next year's Olympic Games in Paris. Investigators are looking into claims of embezzlement and favouritism. The budget for the Games has exploded by more than $2 billion since they were awarded in 2017. Tennis legend Martina Navratilova says she's cancer-free. The 66-year-old was undergoing treatment for throat and breast cancer, but now says doctors have given her the all clear. Navratilova won 59 Grand Slam titles during her career, including 3 Australian Opens. This year's Vivid Festival is officially the biggest ever. More than 3.2 million people took in the lights, talks and drone shows over 3 weeks. Local hospitality received a big boost, with restaurants and bars reporting record sales for this time of year. The expanded drone shows also proved popular. 500,000 people took in one of the 7 displays over Sydney Harbour. The man accused of killing Sydney woman Cecilia Haddad finally facing justice. Still to come, the emotional evidence in a marathon opening day of his murder trial. The tiny Pacific airline passing Qantas as the best in the region. The new punishment coming for those caught assaulting retail staff. June's coldest morning in more than a decade and more chilly weather to come.
And ahead in sport, the Blues bracing for another Origin bloodbath in enemy territory.
Welcome back. After a marathon day of evidence at the murder trial of a Brazilian man accused of killing his ex-girlfriend in Sydney, the jury will sleep in the courthouse tonight before delivering their verdict tomorrow. Mario Santoro faces 30 years in jail if convicted.
Cecilia Haddad's family believe they're one day closer to justice. Mario Marcelo Santoro's murder trial has finally begun in Brazil.
Santoro, do you have something to say for yourself?
Sydney detectives the first to testify against the accused killer, presenting mobile phone data and his shoes as crucial evidence.
A pair of shoes was located at the end of Angelo Street, Woolwich.
Precisely where the engineer allegedly entered Sydney Harbour to dump and sink Cecilia's body in 2018.
So the examination of the house showed the absence of the driveway.
Cecilia's ex-husband told the jury when he asked Santoro, who was the best man at their wedding, about the keys he threw in the river. At first he denied it, then he lied. Cecilia's close friend became emotional. She testified how happy she was. But the court heard Santoro was stalking her after she ended their relationship. Her mother recalled her final phone call with her beloved daughter.
I heard Santoro banging loudly on her apartment door. I heard Cecilia saying to him, "Go away."
The court heard 7 minutes later Santoro strangled Cecilia inside her Ryde apartment before dumping her body and fleeing home to Brazil. Tomorrow Santoro's defence begins. The trial wrapped up at 11 p.m. local time with this message to Santoro. Ashley Hansen, 7 News.
Tough new laws are being put before the state parliament to prevent attacks on retail workers. Under the bill introduced today, those convicted of assaulting staff would face up to 11 years jail.
It will not be tolerated, and that these laws, when put into place, will make a major difference.
A new report has found 85% of retail workers have either been abused or assaulted on the job. Qantas has copped a big demotion in the latest global ratings, slipping from 5th to 17th on a list of the 20 best airlines. But it's much better news for one of the Flying Kangaroo's Pacific partners, a small airline now mixing it with aviation heavyweights.
Bula. Passengers arriving in Australia today straight off a Fiji Airways flight, just awarded the region's best airline.
It doesn't matter where you come from. You can take on the world.
Absolutely no surprise.
It was fantastic. So as soon as I stepped on the plane, there was island music playing.
Oh, they were great. They were so friendly.
After bumping Qantas off top spot in Australia and the Pacific.
Over the last year, 2 years, it's not been difficult to beat Qantas.
In what's known as the Oscars for airlines, Skytrax has put Singapore Airlines at number 1, followed by Qatar, All Nippon, Emirates and Japan Airlines. Qantas nosediving a dozen spots to a lowly 17th, 2 places behind surprise package Fiji Airways. Today worth a good gloat.
We beat Qantas and every other competitor to be declared the best.
Qantas is blaming a bad period of flight cancellations and lost luggage. If you ran this survey today, the results would be very different.
Hopefully it's a short stint for Qantas at number 17, but I think they will be back in that top 5 position very, very quickly.
At a time when airlines are happy to get any award they can with, more signs today of the turbulence caused by the rising cost of living. Rex has forecast a loss this financial year of $35 million, despite being declared in the awards Australia's best regional operator. Chris Marr, 7 News.
8 Sydney councils are taking part in Australia's biggest road project using recycled rubber. They're partnering with Boral to lay crumbled rubber asphalt from old tyres on local streets. Councils involved include Northern Beaches, Inner West, Burwood, Bayside and Sutherland. Initially 3,600 tyres will be used, with research suggesting crumbled rubber asphalt can double the life of a road. As Amber mentioned earlier, Sydney has shivered through its coldest June morning in 13 years. It was triggered by a cold front moving through the southeast, slow enough to guarantee icy weather for days to come.
Beyond the mountains, the coldest June morning since 2006. A frosty start in Oberon. Inside, the best place to be.
We got the fire going, keep it warm.
Some braver than others, as Sydney woke to the lowest June temperatures in 13 years.
Wake up out of bed and don't want to get up.
The city, a balmy 5.2 degrees, dropping to 2.5 at Homebush, 0.5 at Badgerys Creek, minus 1.6 at Campbelltown, under 0 at Penrith, colder again at Richmond.
It's fresh. Look at the air, breathe it in.
How good is this?
But spare a thought for Canberra, -7, -5 at Scone, colder at Glen Innes and Orange, and a crisp -10 at Perisher.
It is super cold, and we are expecting those cold temperatures to come to redevelop again at the end of the week.
A boon for the Blue Mountains Ugg boot trade.
Like sheepskin slippers, slide-ons up to near knee-length tall boots.
It's really essential because if you've got cold feet, you've got a cold body.
The Weather Bureau is expecting more extra cold days this winter, but generally the forecast up until September is above average temperatures and low rainfall as we move towards an El Niño event. Isabel Mullen, 7 News.
One of the world's biggest pop stars is on her way down under. Up next, how much it will cost Sydney fans to see Taylor Swift up close. Why an Aussie favourite is disappearing from our lolly jars. Making the most of tax time, how to get a bigger refund.
And soon in sport, Jerome Luai's quest to prove he can dominate Origin without Nathan Cleary.
Welcome back. There's a rush on sales of a classic Aussie lolly before it's gone for good. Allens has revealed Fantails will be discontinued after a major decline in sales and an ageing production line.
We're making our last run next month, middle of the month, and then it'll be sold out over the coming months after that. So there's still a chance to get your last bag of Fantails.
Australia's oldest chocolate company, Ernest Hillier Chocolates, has also announced its collapse. There was no bad blood for Sydney's biggest Taylor Swift fans this morning. Waking up to news, the pop megastar is heading here. Her Eras tour has already proved a global sensation, but tickets won't be cheap.
All right, you guys, we've come here today on a Friday night in Sydney.
And after 5 years, Tay-Tay's on her way back.
Getting back together.
Posting this morning to her 260 million followers in February next year. After 2 shows at the MCG, she'll be doing 3 at Sydney Olympic Park's Accor Stadium. The reaction from fans? The Swifties.
Are you excited?
And already stressing about tickets.
5 shows for the whole of Australia is a needle in a haystack.
From $380 for up the front to $80 up the back, the top VIP ticket more than $1,200.
I will go into copious amounts of debt for this woman.
It's an over 3 hour long show, so you definitely, I think, get bang for your buck.
A lot of my friends already had outfits planned already.
Swifties everywhere will be converging on Sydney. If I can get a ticket, I'll be there for sure.
Ticketek's website already getting 1 million hits. To prevent scalping, there's a limit of 4 per customer and they won't be activated until February. After some pre-sales Monday, general public ticket sales start Friday next week.
It's gonna be alright.
Paul Kadak, 7 News.
You can help make a real difference to the lives of young ones in need tomorrow by donating to the Sydney Sick Kids Appeal. The annual event run by the Sydney Children's Hospital Foundation raises money to buy essential equipment for important procedures on young patients. Donations made tomorrow will be matched by the Pet Barn Foundation. Time now for a check on finance with Gemma Acton. Gemma, the share market's stellar run has come to an end.
Yes, Mark, after 7 higher finishes, the ASX 200 took its cue from a weak Wall Street overnight and retreated. Flight Centre took the wooden spoon after updates from its investor strategy session today disappointed. The Aussie dollar has slipped back under 68 US cents, while gold prices have also taken another leg lower. And as we know, consumers are tightening their belts. That doesn't just mean fewer trips to the shops, but also pulling back on what they plan to buy online. That's according to a new survey from investment bank UBS, which shows online spending intentions have plunged in recent months. Mark.
Gemma, thank you. With a soaring cost of living, it's crucial you get the best possible tax refund. Still to come, expert tips on how to make the most of tax time, what you need to do now to ensure more money in your pocket. Don't miss that story soon on 7 News. But first, Mel is here with sport, and Mel, the Blues have a huge mountain to climb.
They really do, Fergo, but we're optimistic. We're close to kick-off. It's must-win for the Blues, and it's already heaving in and around Suncorp Stadium. We are live there next. Plus, we finally hear from Joseph Suali'i on why his switch to rugby is about much more than money. And Perfect Pat admits this epic Ashes victory was his best ever. Welcome back. The Blues expect tonight's Origin clash to be every bit as brutal as last year's Suncorp Stadium decider. Dominating that physical battle will be key if Brad Fittler's men are to be any chance of the upset they need to keep the series alive.
The Blues hard men were jovial this morning, but they're under no illusions about what they're about to walk into at the Cauldron. Greg Alexander predicting a repeat of last year's decider, a game that took Origin barbarity to a whole new level.
Ready for anything. Cast your mind back to Game 3 last year. That was the most brutal opening of a game I can remember. I'm assuming that tonight will be as brutal as it was in Game 3 last year.
Jerome Luai was in the thick of it, standing over an unconscious Selwyn Cobbo and hurling abuse.
Origin footy is tough, and just the intensity of it is a lot greater, so that's what Origin footy is about for me.
Tonight's also about proving he can own the Origin stage without his partner in crime at Penrith.
I know people have that opinion that, you know, I can't really play well without Nath, but yeah, I enjoy that challenge. I'm pretty excited by that opportunity to play with Mitch.
Luai and Moses are the keys to unlocking the Blues with the smooth moves. The new halves partners had plenty in common.
We had a pretty cool conversation about, you know, off the field things and family and stuff like that, so I definitely know we have a lot in common off the field, which sort of fast tracks what you can do on the field as well.
Live now to Chief League reporter Michelle Bishop at the Cauldron. Hello, Shell. We've heard so much about these mad Queenslanders and the hostile atmosphere they create. Is it as bad as usual?
Oh, Mel, it's bad. We're still over an hour away from kick-off, and just to think that the pubs and the cafes are still absolutely booming at Caxton Street. Not all of these Queenslanders have arrived yet, but they're certainly in for a ripper night tonight, obviously wanting to clinch the series. We hope that's not the case, but look, 52,500 Queenslanders. The Blues are certainly up against it tonight. They've got to win. They have to win to keep the series alive and keep poor old Freddie in a job.
Spent the week with the Blues. What do you think? Do they really think they can pull it off tonight?
Look, Mel, the mood this week has been very, very different. We've been up against it, obviously losing Latrell Mitchell, and then we're sweating on the outcome of Liam Martin and Cam Murray. So it hasn't been the ideal build-up, and it's all been smooth sailing for Queensland. But the one key message that I got out of the Blues this week from James Tedesco was to get out, play hard, play strong, lay that platform early, and then don't take the foot off the medal. They have to play for the full 80 minutes. We saw what happened when they didn't do that last start. But look, all go the Blues. What else can I say, guys?
Yeah, that's fair enough. Enjoy, Shell. Good luck in the blue as well. The Roosters tried to fly him under the Origin radar, but code hopper Joseph Suaalii has finally spoken about his $5 million defection to rugby. Due to code switch at the end of 2025, the 19-year-old says Rugby World Cups and Lions tours are the lure, not money.
I still remember watching the Kirtley Bills, the Israel Folau's when I was younger, and it's always been a dream of mine.
Avoiding media for most of the season, the currently suspended Suaalii's form has suffered since putting pen to paper on the Mammoth deal. My best test ever. That is Pat Cummins on Australia's miracle comeback to win the first Ashes test against England. Chasing 281, they looked gone before Cummins clubbed 44 not out with Nathan Lyon, snatching victory in the final overs of a classic.
Edgbaston, the great escape, led by the captain, his best test ever.
And Australia are home. Ice in his veins, Pat Cummins.
Number one, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Start of Ashes series, number one.
Earlier, All England 20 for Scott Boland's shift as night watchman, Travis Head, 16. That first innings 100 plus another 50 for Usman Khawaja. Drinks spiked more verbals between Uzi and Ollie Robinson. The paceman's deeds undoing Cam Green for 28. A wake-up call for Alex Carey on 65, Khawaja cracked. Carey 20, a Joe Root classic.
He's taken this one. He's put two down. He's got this, and it's Carey.
Unwatchable, unmissable, Q Cummins. His big hitting unbeaten 44 brought victory in sight. Ben Stokes almost snared Nathan Lyon. Australia avoiding England's grasp by 2 wickets. 281, Australia's highest chase in England since Don Bradman's 1948 Invincibles.
Yeah, that's special. Bloody special.
I'm not going to lie, I was absolutely
myself for the last 5 minutes there.
Andrew McKinlay, 7 News.
Aussies, what an epic day and night it was, and go the Blues, as we always say, Fergo.
You're wearing your lucky dress, we're going to be okay.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Good on you, mate. Christmas comes but once a year, and so does the tax man. To make sure you get the maximum return, we've been speaking to the experts who say there are crucial steps to take before the end of the month.
You can count on this Ramsgate Christmas shop for festive cheer, but the gift of good business has been particularly difficult to deliver.
We've had the shop for about 28 years. At the moment it's really tough and we're trying to stay bright. It is tricky.
Tax time on June 30th will be crucial to keep the doors open. This year there are some changes to watch out for. The tax offset worth up to $1,500 for low and middle income earners expires. If you're working from home, you can claim 67 cents per hour for expenses, but that's down from the 80-cent shortcut during the pandemic. Thinking of donating to a charity or paying for a subscription or membership fee related to work? Do it now. And for property investors, you can claim interest deductions.
For the amount that you borrowed to purchase your rental property.
It's important to keep track of your assets, such as property and shares, and identify any gains or losses that could take more off your tax bill.
Talk to your accountant, see whether selling that asset will generate a loss to offset that gain and reduce your tax.
Different rules can apply to different types of taxpayers.
And this year, the ATO has ramped up compliance, so keep your receipts and check them twice. Angelique Opie, 7 News.
Amber is back with the forecast now. Amber, how's the rest of the week shaping up?
Mark, thankfully it shouldn't be as cool as today, but there is some wet weather on the way. We've just received the latest weekend forecast. That's coming up next.
Tonight, inside the Mexican drug tunnels used by smugglers to eventually sneak their gear here. The 21-year mystery of a teen who went missing on the way to see family. Her sister joins us on a police reward. Plus, the newly awarded Young Farmer of the Year, turning the ag game on its head. We'll see you at 10:40.
Tonight's 7 News headlines: possible signs of life with banging noises heard in the search for a missing submarine. Police accused of a cover-up over the taser death of a dementia patient. Metal detector wands could be used in Sydney's fight against knife crime. And a historic Ashes win for Australia, led by captain Pat Cummins. Now here's Amber with Sydney's weather.
Thank you, Mark. Well, the good news is it should be slightly warmer tomorrow morning after that freezing start today. And while minimums were well below average, it was the apparent temperatures that really had some bite. It felt like minus 5.2 at Richmond this morning, minus 4.4 at Camden. Spare a thought for the people at Mossvale in the Southern Highlands, though. The feels-like temperature there was minus 9 just after 6:30 a.m. Let's take a look now at the satellite image, and this very large high pressure system has generated plenty of clear skies over the last few days, but you can see this cold front approaching. It is set to bring some rainfall to most of New South Wales as it crosses the state tomorrow and Friday. In that system's wake, a ridge of high pressure will develop across the north, while a series of fronts brush the south over the weekend, bringing some more cool and gusty conditions to parts of the state's southeast. But if we take a look around the country tomorrow, you can see that front is set to generate plenty of wet weather. Up to 25 millimetres of rain is forecast tomorrow in Adelaide, with late rain also expected in Melbourne and in Canberra. 12 degrees the top there, dipping to 0 tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, Brisbane is expecting a partly cloudy 22. Across the state, you can see those showers pushing east thanks to that front. There is a chance of a storm across the far west and also the central west slopes and plains, with fresh gusty winds forecast during the middle of the day. That wet weather is set to reach the coast and Sydney during the afternoon. It's looking like another fresh start for much of the west tomorrow morning, dipping to 0 at Camden, 1 degree at Campbelltown and also at Richmond, with daytime temperatures to generally hover between 15 to 16 degrees in most parts. On the water tomorrow, light variable winds should become northerly during the middle of the day, increasing to 20 knots offshore during the late evening. But back in the city tomorrow, 17 degrees is the forecast top under cloudy skies with those late showers expected, persisting early Friday at this stage, but then we should enjoy a sunny end to the working week with clear skies forecast right throughout the weekend, reaching 21 degrees across the city on Sunday. Still a little bit chilly though tomorrow morning across the west. But Mark, tonight is the longest night of the year with winter solstice tomorrow. We'll have 14 hours and 6 minutes of darkness before sunrise at 7 a.m. Hopefully that means a bit of a sleep in for some.
Sleep in would be very nice, Amber. Thank you. That is 7 News for this Wednesday. We'll have updates for you throughout the evening. I'm Mark Ferguson from all the team. I hope you have a great night.
Stream 7 News anytime, live and on demand on 7plus. And with 7news.com.au, you'll know the news.